1 of Surah Dhariyat, and we'll recite up till the beginning of Surah Rahman. Inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال فما خطبكم أيها المرسلون قالوا إنا أرسلنا إلى قوم مجرمين لنرسل عليهم حجارة من طين مسومة عند ربك للمسرفين فأخرجنا من كان فيها من المؤمنين فما وجدنا فيها غير بيت من المسلمين وتركنا فيها آية للذين يخافون العذاب الأليم وفي موسى إذ أرسلناه إلى فرعون بسلطان مبين فتولى بركنه وقال ساحر أو مجنون فأخذناه وجنوده فنبذناه في اليم وهو مليم وفي عاد إذ أرسلنا عليهم الريح العقيم ما تذر من شيء نتت عليه إلا جعلته كالرميم وفي ثمود إذ قيل لهم تمتعوا حتى حين فعتوا عن أمر ربهم فأخذتهم الصاعقة وهم ينظرون فما استطاعوا من قيام وما كانوا منتصرين وقوم نوح من قبل إنهم كانوا قوما فاسقين والسماء بنيناها بأيد وإنا لموسعون والأرض فرشناها فنعم الماهدون ومن كل شيء خلقنا زوجين لعلكم تذكرون ففروا إلى الله إني لكم منه نذير مبين ولا تجعلوا مع الله إلها آخر إني لكم منه نذير مبين كذلك ما أتى الذين من قبلهم من رسول إلا قالوا ساحر أو مجنون أتواصوا به بل هم قوم طاغون فتول عنهم فما أنت بملوم وذكر فإن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون ما أريد منهم من رزق وما أريد أن يطعمون إن الله هو الرزاق ذو القوة المتين فإن للذين ظلموا ذنوبا مثل ذنوب أصحابهم فلا يستعجلون فويل للذين كفروا من يومهم الذي يوعدون بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والطور وكتاب مسطور في رق منشور والبيت المعمور والسقف المرفوع والبحر المسجور إن عذاب ربك لواقع ما له من دافع يوم تمور السماء مورا وتسير الجبال سيرا فويل يومئذ للمكذبين الذين هم في خوض يلعبون يوم يدعون إلى نار جهنم دعا هذه النار التي كنتم بها تكذبون أفسحر هذا أم أنتم لا تبصرون اصلوها فاصبروا أو لا تصبروا سواء عليكم إنما تجزون ما كنتم تعملون إن المتقين في جنات ونعيم فاكهين بما آتاهم ربهم ووقاهم ربهم عذاب الجحيم كلوا واشربوا هنيئا بما كنتم تعملون متكئين على سرر مصفوفة وزوجناهم بحور عين والذين آمنوا واتبعتهم ذريتهم بإيمان ألحقنا بهم ذريتهم وما ألتناهم من عملهم من شيء كل امرئ بما كسب رهين وأمددناهم بفاكهة ولحم مما يشتهون يتنازعون فيها كأسا لا لغو فيها ولا تأثيم ويطوف عليهم غلمان لهم كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون وأقبل بعضهم على بعض يتساءلون قالوا إنا كنا قبل في أهلنا مشفقين فمن الله علينا ووقانا عذاب السموم إنا كنا من قبل ندعوه إنه هو البر الرحيم فذكر فما أنت بنعمة ربك بكاهن ولا مجنون أم يقولون شاعر نتربص به ريب المنون قل تربصوا فإني معكم من المتربصين أم تأمرهم أحلامهم بهذا أم هم قوم طاغون أم يقولون تقوله بل لا يؤمنون فليأتوا بحديث مثله إن كانوا صادقين أم خلقوا من غير شيء أم هم الخالقون أم خلقوا السماوات والأرض بل لا يوقنون أم عندهم خزائن ربك أم هم المسيطرون أم لهم سلم يستمعون فيه فليأت مستمعهم بسلطان مبين أم له البنات ولكم البنون أم تسألهم أجرا فهم من مغرم مثقلون أم عندهم الغيب فهم يكتبون أم يريدون كيدا فالذين كفروا هم المكيدون أم لهم إله غير الله سبحان الله عما يشركون وإن يروا كسفا من السماء ساقطا يقولوا سحاب مركوم فذرهم حتى يلاقوا يومهم الذي فيه يصعقون يوم لا يغني عنهم كيدهم شيئا ولا هم ينصرون وإن للذين ظلموا عذابا دون ذلك ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون واصبر لحكم ربك فإنك بأعيننا وسبح بحمد ربك حين تقوم ومن الليل فسبحه وإدبار النجوم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والنجم إذا هوى ما ضل صاحبكم وما غوى وما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى علمه شديد القوى ذو مرة فاستوى وهو بالأفق الأعلى ثم دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى فأوحى إلى عبده ما أوحى ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى أفتمارونه على ما يرى ولقد رآه نزلة أخرى عند سدرة المنتهى عندها جنة المأوى إذ يغشى السدرة ما يغشى ما زاغ البصر وما طغى لقد رأى من آيات ربه الكبرى أفرأيتم اللات والعزى ومناة الثالثة الأخرى ألكم الذكر وله الأنثى تلك إذا قسمة ضيزى إن هي إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان إن يتبعون إلا الظن وما تهوى الأنفس ولقد جاءهم من ربهم الهدى أم للإنسان ما تمنى فلله الآخرة والأولى وكم من ملك في السماوات لا تغني شفاعتهم شيئا إلا من بعد أن يأذن الله لمن يشاء إلا من بعد أن يأذن الله لمن يشاء ويرضى إن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة لا يسمون الملائكة تسمية الأنثى وما لهم به من علم إن يتبعون إلا الظن وإن الظن لا يغني من الحق شيئا فأعرض عمن تولى عن ذكرنا ولم يرد إلا الحياة الدنيا ذلك مبلغهم من العلم إن ربك هو أعلم بما ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بمن اهتدى ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ليجزي الذين أساءوا بما عملوا ويجزي الذين أحسنوا بالحسنى الذين يجتنبون كبائر الإثم والفواحش إلا اللمم إن ربك واسع المغفرة هو أعلم بكم إذ أنشأكم من الأرض وإذ أنتم أجنة في بطون أمهاتكم فلا تزكوا أنفسكم هو أعلم بمن اتقى أفرأيت الذي تولى وأعطى قليلا وأكدى أعنده علم الغيب فهو يرى أم لم ينبأ بما في صحف موسى وإبراهيم الذي وفى ألا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وأن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى وأن سعيه سوف يرى ثم يجزاه الجزاء الأوفى وأن إلى ربك المنتهى وأنه هو أضحك وأبكى وأنه هو أمات وأحيا وأنه خلق الزوجين الذكر والأنثى من نطفة إذا تمنى وأن عليه النشأة الأخرى وأنه هو أغنى وأقنى وأنه هو رب الشعرى وأنه أهلك عادا الأولى وثمود فما أبقى وقوم نوح من قبل إنهم كانوا هم أظلم وأطغى والمؤتفكة أهوى فغشاها ما غشا فبأي آلاء ربك تتمارى هذا نذير من النذر الأولى أزفت الآزفة ليس لها من دون الله كاشفة أفمن هذا الحديث تعجبون وتضحكون ولا تبكون وأنتم سامدون فاسجدوا لله واعبدوه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر وإن يروا آية يعرضوا ويقولوا سحر مستمر وكذبوا واتبعوا أهواءهم وكل أمر مستقر ولقد جاءهم من الأنباء ما فيه مزدجر حكمة بالغة فما تغني النذر فتول عنهم يوم يدعو الداعي إلى شيء نكر خش عن أبصارهم يخرجون من الأجداث كأنهم جراد منتشر مهطعين إلى الداع يقول الكافرون هذا يوم عسر كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح فكذبوا عبدنا وقالوا مجنون وازدجر فدعا ربه أني مغلوب فانتصر ففتحنا أبواب السماء بماء منهمر وفجرنا الأرض عيونا فالتقى الماء على أمر قد قدر وحملناه على ذات ألواح ودسر تجري بأعيننا جزاء لمن كان كفر ولقد تركناها آية فهل من مدكر فكيف كان عذابي ونذر ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر كذبت عاد فكيف كان عذابي ونذر إنا أرسلنا عليهم ريحا صرصرا في يوم نحس مستمر تنزع الناس كأنهم أعجاز نخل منقعر فكيف كان عذابي ونذر ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر كذبت ثمود بالنذر فقالوا وبشرا منا واحدا نتبعه إنا إذا لفي ضلال وسعر ألقي الذكر عليه من بيننا بل هو كذاب أشر سيعلمون غدا من الكذاب الأشر إنا مرسل الناقة فتنة لهم فارتقبهم واصطبر ونبئهم أن الماء قسمة بينهم كل شرب محتضر فنادوا صاحبهم فتعاطى فعقر فكيف كان عذابي ونذر إنا أرسلنا عليهم صيحة واحدة فكانوا كهشيم المحتضر ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر كذبت قوم لوط بالنذر إنا أرسلنا عليهم حاصبا إلا آل لوط نجيناهم بسحر نعمة من عندنا كذلك نجزي من شكر ولقد أنذرهم بطشتنا فتماروا بالنذر ولقد راودوه عن ضيفه فطمسنا أعينهم فذوقوا عذابي ونذر ولقد صبحهم بكرة عذاب مستقر فذوقوا عذابي ونذر ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر ولقد جاء آل فرعون النذر كذبوا بآياتنا كلها فأخذناهم أخذ عزيز مقتدر أكفاركم خير من أولئكم أم لكم براءة في الزبر أم يقولون نحن جميع منتصر سيهزم الجمع ويولون الدبر بل الساعة موعدهم والساعة أدهى وأمر إن المجرمين في ضلال وسعر يوم يسحبون في النار على وجوههم ذوقوا مس سقر إنا كل شيء خلقناه بقدر وما أمرنا إلا واحدة كلمح بالبصر ولقد أهلكنا أشياعكم فهل من مدكر وكل شيء فعلوه في الزبر وكل صغير وكبير مستطر إن المتقين في جنات ونهر في مقعد صدق عند مليك مقتدر صدق الله العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. أما بعد. So inshallah, today's reflection will mostly be focused on Surah Ar-Raḥmān. I know we haven't read it yet, but when you look at this juz, we know that the Quran, by its nature, has a linguistic poetry that, is unparalleled, especially at the time in which it was revealed, that even the Arabs and the greatest linguists of that time could not match or come remotely close to the beauty of the Quran. And personally, for me, there's no juz that makes that more clear than the 27th. And we got a hint of it just now with all the surahs that we just read from Surah Qamar, right, is a very big one. Surah Tur, Surah Najm, right? وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَالطُّورِ وَكِتَابٍ مَسْطُورٍ. There's this poetry and this rhyming that is more found in this juz than I personally feel in the other juz, right? We know Surah Ar-Raḥmān, right? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, and the ends of each of the ayahs and how they match the previous ayahs and in their endings. واقعة إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة, all the way to the end of the juz. And we don't have time to go necessarily into each of them, but we'll focus on Surah Rahman because there is a intent, there's a very specific intent and beauty in the matching descriptions in the poetry that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to us in this surah. And so when we begin with Surah Rahman, right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this tends to be a lot of people's favorite surahs because of the poetic nature of it. And it's one of those surahs that's also a little bit hard to remember if you don't frequently review it because of how many mutashabihat there are, right? There's so many repetitions of ayahs, there's so many different orderings of ayahs. And so even for going through some of the tafsir today, as we start to learn a little bit of the meaning, we'll see that it becomes easier to remember the ordering of the ayat because of how they're laid out. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the middle of the surah, right, He says, يَعْرَفُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ بِسِيمَاهُمْ فَيُؤْخَذُ بِالنَّوَاسِي وَالْأَقْدَامِ. So He begins the surah first with a description of one of His most beautiful names, Ar-Raḥmān. And then He talks about how He created man, how He gave him the ability to express himself, right, and to speak. And the sun and the moon and how they are in fixed course, the stars, the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when He starts to talk about Jannah and Jahannam, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a general rule of thumb, and we know this from even the previous surahs, that whenever He mentions one of these categories, whether it's Jannah or whether it's Jahannam, they're usually always found together. And that whenever He mentions punishment, He also mentions mercy. And the reason for that being is it's not intended to be just a means for us to fear the punishment. That's one part of it. But for those of us who do fear it, there is a hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It never comes just one-sidedly. And so we see this even here. And in fact, whenever there's mentions of Jahannam or Jannah, there tend to be even more mentions of Jannah or goodness or mercy. And we actually see that here, right? Particularly when we look at this ayah that we just read, يَعْرَفُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ بِسِيمَاهُمْ فَيُؤْخَذُ بِالنَّوَاسِي وَالْأَقْدَامِ فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ هَذِهِ جَهَنَّمُ الَّتِي يُكَذِّبُ بِهَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ يَطُوفُونَ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَ حَمِيمٍ آنٍ. There's 4 ayahs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing the inhabitants of Jahannam. But after those 4 ayahs, there's 14 ayahs that describe Jannah and go into so much more detail. Right? He doesn't go into as much detail as He does of Jahannam because Jahannam alone is enough fear. There's enough of a motivating factor for people to stay away from it, right? If you were going to tell somebody that if you don't do this thing, I'm going to take away, the thing that, or let's just say if you don't do this thing, I'm going to take away your money from you, right? But you don't specify the amount of money, right? People don't want any money taken away from them, right? Just out of fear of it, they're going to stay away from doing what they were forbidden to do, right? And the point being that we're trying to make is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to describe Jahannam in even more detail, He chooses not to do so because it's enough of a punishment that people recognize it, and they're not going to be even more scared if you were to describe it into more detail, right? It alone is enough. But on the other hand, right, He chooses to describe Jannah in even more detail because sometimes people, when they know that something is good for them, that's not enough. They want to know why it's good for them. They want to know the specifics of why it's good for them. They want to know the depth of what they're going to gain, right? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were just to tell us Jannah is a place in which we'll be happy, right? People would question, well, I can be happy anywhere else, right? What's the depth of that happiness? Is that happiness going to be permanent? Right? What is the source of that happiness? Right? If it's just happiness and it has no cause, then is it really happiness? Like, people get into this whole existentialism and like crisis and question in terms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you that something is good, but you're questioning the goodness in it. And He recognizes that in human nature, and so He chooses to elaborate the more descriptive ayat in all of His revelation as signs of His mercy. Right? And so we'll go through a few of them very briefly, but when He says, whoever feel يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيأخذ بالنواصي والأقدام وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ, right? That whoever fears standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says Jannatan. Right? We know that there are multiple levels of Jannah. We know Jannah itself is just, there's Jannah and there's Jahannam, right? But why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying Jannatan? There's two Jannahs. Right? And He uses the same theme through the rest of the surah, that whenever He describes an attribute of Jannah, He's actually describing two different levels and two different types of people. Right? We know there are different stations that people may have. We know that there are different levels and maqam that they may have in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He's actually highlighting some of the differences right here. That وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ, that there are two gardens. And what are those two gardens? Right? ذَوَاتَا أَفْنَانِ, that the high category, right, the higher level is ذَوَاتَا أَفْنَانِ, that gardens that are filled with lush and full branches. Right? This is the high category. The lower category is mudhammatan, right? Towards the end of the surah, we see, or towards the middle of it, mudhammatan, that there are just, there's just deep greenery, there's luscious greenery. And so this is a harder category, this is a harder, until we go through the rest of the ayat, it won't necessarily make sense to some people, but He's beginning in the first half of the surah describing the people of the higher category, right? And in the second half of the surah, He begins to describe the lower category. So in the high category, first we begin with ذَوَاتَا أَفْنَانِ, that there are lush and plenty of branches, right? And then He continues and He says فِيهِمَا عَيْنَانِ تَجْرِيَانِ, that the higher level again has streams that are flowing, right? Two running springs. And what does He say about the lower level? Right, the lower level, فِيهِمَا عَيْنَانِ نَضَّاخَتَانِ, that there are two gushing springs, right? Almost like bubbling springs. So there's a difference between one that is running and constant, right? That you don't have to worry about the source of it. You don't have to worry about it being diminished. You don't have to worry about when and how you take from it, right? It's a flowing stream. It's the difference between almost a river and a lake, right? But then if there's a bubbling stream or a gushing stream, then you don't know where it's coming from or when it's going to come, right? You don't know how much you can take away from it. You don't know if there's a certain capacity in which you have to measure in which what you take from it, right? And so the first, again, category that He talks about is the fact that there are all these branches and there are trees. Then He says that there are flowing streams. And then He says, فِيهِمَا مِنْ كُلِّ فَاكِهَةٍ زَوْجَانِ. And so this starts to get more tangible, that there are fruits of every single category. Right? فِيهِمَا مِنْ كُلِّ فَاكِهَةٍ زَوْجَانِ. Anything that you can think of in pairs of every single kind, you will find it. But then what about the lower category? Right? You still have the fruits, but فِيهِمَا فَاكِهَةُ وَنَخْلُ وَرُمَّانِ. This was something that I was always puzzled about, because when the Quran gets very specific, there's a reason for its specificity, right? In that, if we know Jannah has access to everything, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that we're only going to get فِيهِمَا فَاكِهَةُ وَنَخْلُ وَرُمَّانِ, that we're only going to get pomegranates and and date palms and things like that, right? If we have access to everything, why is he so specific about these fruits? And so this is what we're learning here. The higher category has access to everything. فِيهِمَا مِنْ كُلِّ فَاكِهَةٍ زَوْجَانِ. Whereas the lower category, they're still going to enjoy, right? They're never going to feel like something was taken away from them. But there are higher levels, and they're only going to be able to enjoy a specific part of that ni'mah and that bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فِيهِمَا مِنْ كُلِّ فَاكِهَةٍ زَوْجَانِ. And then you have مُتَّكِئِينَ عَلَى فُرُشٍ بَطَائِنُهَا مِنْ إِسْتَبْرَقٍ. That the people who attain Jannah and attain their Lord's blessings, they shall be reclining on, it says canopied spreads, right? But essentially think of sofas, because that's the description that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses later. And he says whose linings are of silk, right? He actually doesn't describe, when he says describes the sofa, he actually doesn't describe the sofa. Right? He describes the linings of the sofa. And there's a beauty in that, because if the lining is made of something so beautiful and something that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing as the epitome of beauty and class and almost like wealth, right? Like silk, we know, is one of the most valuable elements that garments can be made out of. And so if he's describing that as the lining, the inside of that sofa, then what about the actual, the sofa and the seating and just the, like the homes in Jannah themselves, right? He's giving us little hints of it. And then what about the lower level? He says, فِيهِمَا, at the end of the surah, مُتَّكِئِينَ عَلَى رَفْرَفٍ خُضْرٍ وَعَبْقَرِيٍّ حِسَانٍ. Now he switches it. This is where it's beautiful in its parallelism. That now he doesn't describe the lining, he's saying the lower level, مُتَّكِئِينَ عَلَى رَفْرَفٍ خُضْرٍ, that the lower level, they sit on lush green cushions, right? So the cushions are green and they're lush. They are things that people will enjoy, but there's a very big difference between the people who are sitting on almost these elaborate, beautiful thrones versus people who are sitting on, thrones, for lack of a better word. They're both beautiful, but there are definite differences between them. Then you have فِيهِنَّ قَاصِرَاتُ الطَّرْفِ لَمْ يَطْمِثْهُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلَهُمْ وَلَا جَانٌ. That the companions, right, of Jannah, فِيهِنَّ قَاصِرَاتُ الطَّرْفِ لَمْ يَطْمِثْهُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلَهُمْ وَلَا جَانٌ. I'm just trying to find the ayah. That the ulama say that the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says فِيهِنَّ قَاصِرَاتُ الطَّرْفِ, that your eyes are just going to be drawn to them, right? Is that they're going to be so beautiful, right? Your companions in Jannah are going to be so beautiful that you literally, you're not in control of your eyes anymore, right? And at that point, it's halal, right? But the point being that they're so beautiful that your eyes cannot even move away from them. In fact, that they're drawn down to them, and they won't. And this is, subhanAllah, like the beauty in a lot of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made both halal and haram for us. He's using a lot of these parallels. We know that in this world, right? We know that in the dunya that illicit relationships or wine or like drinking and things like that, those are things that are haram for us, right? But then he uses those same things as descriptions of some of the most beautiful things in Jannah. So not only are they halal, but they are going to be amongst the most beautiful things that we can be given, right? And that's the beauty in trusting and in obedience, in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually, He will show you the hukm in it, but also that He will give you even better. And just like small notes that I want to share for this part, right? But that what the Prophet ﷺ, he said about spouses, right, in Jannah, is that every single time that a person sees their spouse in paradise, right, every single time a person sees that their wife or their husband in Jannah, that they will tell them that you are more beautiful than the last time that I saw you. Right? And that when the husband says that to the wife, then the wife says, well, you're more handsome than the last time that I saw you. And it's a perpetual feeling. This isn't something that's empty words, right? But this is a perpetual feeling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will instill in their hearts, such that there will be no threshold to it. There will be no upper limit. That every single time you meet your husband or wife in Jannah, that they will literally be the most beautiful thing that you saw, and for eternity, right? Perpetually so. And this is something that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can put in your heart. So we know that the natural state of the human being is that we get bored of things, right? We get complacent with things. Even the things that at one time we thought were the most treasured to us or the most beautiful to us, at some point, a natural, monotony, or a natural just diminishing of that high feeling of fervor for something happens, because that's our natural state. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes that. Right? In Jannah, we will never get tired of anything that we have been given. And then the last one, I think we can actually end there. The last thing that we'll end with is, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually use such specific descriptions, right? Now, that's a big question that people have, that our descriptions of the companions that you will have in Jannah, our descriptions of the food that you're going to eat in Jannah, our descriptions of the places you're going to live or to sit in Jannah, are those enough, right? There are people, right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being amongst these people who think, well, why would I spend an entirety of my life preparing for an abode in which all I'm going to have is unlimited fruit? Right? Like, is that worth it? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's using these descriptions for us, to allow us to recognize things that we already know are beautiful in this world. Right? Things that we already know are things of goodness in this world. Right? But the reality is that the true benefits and the true gems of Jannah are things that can't be described. Right? And even a step further than that, right? A lot of the Salaf, a lot of the ulama, and all of them say that the purpose of Jannah is not to attain unlimited pleasure. Right? The purpose of Jannah is not for you to obtain material things. If we wanted that, then there would be almost virtually no reason for Jannah to exist to begin with. Right? The purpose of Jannah is not for us to get all of these things. The purpose of Jannah is for us to be in close proximity and to see and to witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the purpose of Jannah. Right? And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had wanted, He would have been able to describe things in even more beauty, but He chooses not to, because there is no descriptions of things that literally do not exist in our realm. Right? You can't describe something that isn't something that has been created for the world. You wouldn't be able to understand it. And so that's part of the wisdom in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, describing it in a manner in which we can tangibly see and understand and grasp the benefits that we will attain, right? And in Surah Fussilat, he goes even further, and he does this in so many other surahs. Azza wa Jal, he says, وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسَكُمْ وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. That anything that you desire, right? Forget about the things that we've just specified. Anything that you desire, and what you also want later, right? Meaning everything you can think of, and the things that you can't even think of. The things that you want now, and the things that you don't even know that you want, they're yours. This is the description that He Azza wa Jal gives us of Jannah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us, particularly in this 27th night, on a night that is beloved to Him, regardless of whether it is the day in which, in His knowledge, it is the night of decree or not, but still it being a night that is beloved to Him, in a month that is beloved to Him, in a state that we are that are beloved to Him. We ask Him to make us amongst the people of Jannah. And we ask Him to make us amongst the people who attain this higher level of Jannah, and not be amongst the people who have to settle for something lower. Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam. Tabarakta ya dhul jalali wal ikram. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وادخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم. اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من النار. اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من النار. اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من النار. اللهم أجرنا من النار. اللهم أجرنا من النار. اللهم أجرنا من النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. والله المستعان وعليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Jazakallah khair. For yesterday, the winners for yesterday's question is Shan, and so Jazakallah khair to all the kids for sending such beautiful responses in terms of all these questions that we keep asking every single day, and for them putting their heart and their soul into all of the responses, even the ones that have already won, and we continue to see that. The question for today is how do we know, right, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful and that He wants to give us what's best for us, right? What were some of the descriptions that we shared today of both Jannah and Jahannam, and how they're showed in Surah Ar-Raḥmān, that we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Raḥmān, that He's the most merciful. And so whoever is able to answer that will announce the winner tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.